I want it to be as compelling as it is. It seems like 11,000 kids in care has become white noise.
Tonight, the National Inquiry looks into the connection between the child welfare system and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
Diversity is really important, and it's really the nature of the world itself and humanity.
And how two Indigenous communities from opposite shores of the Atlantic Ocean share a common reality. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Child welfare was at the heart of discussions today at the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. The hearings are now in Winnipeg, a fitting location as Manitoba has the highest child apprehension rates in Canada. As Brittany Hobson tells us, commissioners have heard that this is an issue across the country.
You know, the system just eats up our children.
Clutching a pair of baby moccasins, Cora Morgan told the National Inquiry the child welfare system is designed to punish Indigenous families.
Any challenge that our families are faced with, it's used against them instead of them being offered support.
The inquiry is in Winnipeg this week for hearings on family and child welfare. Morgan, who is the First Nations Child Advocate of Manitoba, was the first to testify Monday morning. Her office works with hundreds of families battling child and family services on a daily basis.
You keep hearing our government say apprehension is the last resort. Well, it's the first resort. It's always the first resort.
Manitoba is ground zero for child apprehension. The statistics are reported weekly. Nearly 11,000 children in care, 90% are Indigenous. Instead of highlighting the frequently reported numbers, Morgan shared stories of women who have sought help.
I want it to be as compelling as it is. It seems like 11,000 kids in care has become white noise. When you attach a story to it, or you put a face to it, or you can convey the pain that people are suffering, then I'm hoping that some way, somehow, someone's going to get how devastating it is.
Morgan says there is a direct link between the child welfare system and missing and murdered women and girls. For many, they lose their value for life.
She said that she didn't care. It didn't matter whether she was in a group home or the youth center. And so that spells out that the reality of her life is so terrible that being locked up is the best thing that she has going on.
Since opening 3 years ago, Morgan has seen 16 mothers die by suicide because their children were apprehended, and 2 mothers killed. Commissioners say they've heard the impact the system has had on families across Canada.
In every jurisdiction we've heard about it, whether it's children who, as a result of their mothers being murdered, ended up in care, or women who, as a result of their children being apprehended, lost financial support, lost housing, and then ended up in precarious situations having to resort to survival sex work.
Morgan ended her testimony with hope to one day see agencies replaced with family support centers. The inquiry will be in Winnipeg until Friday. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
During her testimony, Morgan also spoke about the various cycles of the child welfare system. Here's some of that.
It's based on the commodification of children. And our children, I talked about the budget being $514 million annually. That doesn't even account for the costs in the court system and the justice system and the children who are filling up our psychiatric wards, and, you know, the kids that are in the justice system, and, you know, the feed into homeless situation. So, you know, a lot of these things are just perpetual. Like, you can find 5 or 6 generations of family that their children have been taken. And so for that, it's kind of a vicious cycle as well.
Calgary City Hall today saw hundreds of people wearing orange shirts. They were there to honor those whose lives were affected by residential schools. Among those attending were students from elementary schools from all over the city. While the residential school legacy is making its way into curriculums across Turtle Island, students got to hear firsthand from residential school survivors and take part in a round dance. Elder Ruth Scalplock says that while Orange Shirt Day brings sadness, it also gives survivors like her the strength to heal.
It's a lot of healing, and I encourage survivors to really look at their healing to move forward for the benefit of our young people, our youth.
And the City of Regina was host to numerous Orange Shirt Day events as well. Orange Shirt Day on September 30th is inspired by Phyllis Webstad, who has a heartbreaking story of being stripped of the bright orange shirt she wore to her first day at residential school as a 6-year-old girl. Orange Shirt Day is to raise awareness and understanding of the effects of the residential school system.
Historically,
in schools and at community events, people donned the bright orange t-shirts to commemorate annual Orange Shirt Day. The actual Orange Shirt Day is September 30th. The day originated from the experience of a 6-year-old Indigenous girl who went to her first day at a residential school wearing a new orange shirt and had it taken away from her. But today at Miller Comprehensive High School, students listened as Bridget Lequette, the first Indigenous woman to play on Canada's women's hockey team, spoke of overcoming bullying and racism.
I mean, it's reconciliation, and it's definitely, coming, honestly, just building awareness, raising awareness, and I guess just making a change for the future.
It's important that we learn about each other. It's important that we learn the history of Indigenous people here in my community, and it's important to learn how to work together moving forward.
Over at the Mama Wayatatan Centre, residents, Scott Collegiate students, and a handful of police officers listened to elders share their stories and the effects of residential schools. Participants also walked around the community to raise awareness of Orange Shirt Day.
I catch myself feeling, emotions of hurt and sadness because, the tragedies that my people experience because of residential school.
One organizer clarified that this is not a celebration. It is a day of commemoration. The hope is that these events will teach the community about the lasting impacts of residential schools and honor the memories of those children who did not make it home. Lynn Giesbrecht, CTV News, Regina.
A Winnipeg man faces a manslaughter charge in the connection with the death of his girlfriend's baby boy. On August 30th, emergency personnel responded to a report of an unresponsive infant in the Maples area of Winnipeg. The 21-month-old was taken by ambulance to hospital where he was pronounced dead. An investigation by the Winnipeg Police Child Abuse Unit led to the arrest of 22-year-old Alan Joseph Fryer Beardy. He's facing a charge of manslaughter. The mother of the child, April Thompson, took to Facebook to express her grief.
I'll read your guys' comments after I'm done, because you guys need to know what happened, because I'm getting blamed.
Beardy is scheduled to appear in court tomorrow on those charges. A massive multi-billion-dollar investment into liquefied natural gas in British Columbia is about to be announced, according to industry insiders. The LNG facility in Kitimat, BC, would open the gateway to exporting gas to the Asian market. This is what the $40 billion gas export facility in Kitimat would look like. The project involves Royal Dutch Shell along with 4 other partners. The mayor of Kitimat says it would generate thousands of jobs. He also says that many First Nations along the pipeline route from northeast BC are also in support.
From Kitimat's perspective, about 4,500 jobs during construction, and once it's up and running, in the range of 300 to 400 full-time jobs just right at the plant, and then of course there's going to be many spin-off jobs too. LNG Canada has done an outstanding job of engaging everybody, Aboriginals, non-Aboriginal communities. Their work with the Haisla and others, Kitsalis, has been second to none. They've spent literally millions of dollars on training programs too, making sure that if you happen to be there and you want to work on this project, they've had some type of program for you to upgrade yourself so that everybody has an opportunity to work on the project.
It's time for us to take a short break, but when we come back, 2 Indigenous communities on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean gather to share their culture. But first, here's a look at tomorrow's weather. Over on the East Coast, we've got 11 in rain in Fredericton, 15 and sunny in Halifax. Nukshawak is rain in 3. Nain is sunny in 6. Happy Valley Goose Bay sunny in 10. Chibougamau is 9 with mix of sun and clouds. Settile is 8. Gasp is 10. 9 and raining in Toronto, the nation's capital, is 11 with some rain. Big Trout Lake's got some rain in 6. Thunder Bay and rainy at 11. Churchill, 2 and sunshine. 5 for Thompson and God's Lake. 7s for Barons River, Princess Harbor, and mostly cloudy there. Rain and 1 in Swift Current. North Battleford's in at 5 with a mix of sun and cloud. 4 mix of sun and cloud in Saskatoon. Meadow Lake is in Ville Orange, also 5, mostly sunny. Uranium City is 0 with some snow, and Stony Rapids is 1 with some snow and rain. Hello and welcome back. Two Indigenous communities on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean have more in common than you might think. Cape Breton University hosted a Basque Mi'kmaq Cultural Exchange Conference. More than 40 researchers and scientists visited Eskasoni First Nation to learn about the connections between the Mi'kmaq and the Basque people, and for a hands-on experience of Mi'kmaq culture and knowledge sharing. Angel Moore explains.
This event is part of the Lanter Genek Depau Conference. It focuses on the research and protection of the Basque culture and has been held in Europe since 2012. This year, they came to Cape Breton to meet the Mi'kmaq people.
This is the first of its, this kind anyway, of an international nature focusing on the Basque culture and the Mi'kmaq culture. Roughly 45,000 years before present.
The Basque region borders Spain and France, and they first came here over 500 years ago to fish and trade furs. Famed architect Douglas Cardinal, whose wife is Basque, understands the connection of colonization.
They have had to fight for their language and their culture, and they have survived for thousands of years like we have.
Basque musician Amia Carrel says communities besides Mi'kmaq and Basque share the same struggles.
I would say that any minority shares something which is almost losing the language, almost losing their culture.
Carrel was surprised to learn Mi'kmaq and Basque instruments were made of wood, and how easy the music brought alive the centuries-old friendship.
Being able to share these few seconds with Steven, he playing the drums and we were playing the chalaparta, that makes a special connection.
Another connection is tools, specifically arrowheads. They have been found to carry stories of our ancestors. Archaeologist Bruce Bradley says the way they are carved tells a lot about a community.
Amazingly, you can do it in so many different ways that it can become very cultural. It can become part of a person's identity.
Bradley says we are more alike than different.
I think it's really important. People want to know who they are. Everybody, that's a natural human desire. And when you don't know who you are, it's very disturbing.
This gathering is changing that.
Sharing diversity. Diversity is really important, and it's really the nature of the world itself and humanity.
Next year, they hope to gather in Montreal and invite more Indigenous groups to celebrate and share. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Eskasoni.
Well, it's an exciting week here at APTN News as our current affairs shows all return for a new season. On Wednesday, I'll be here with a new season of APTN in Focus, live at 2 p.m. Central Time, and we are putting future Indigenous leaders in focus. Then on Thursday, our political affairs show Nation to Nation is back with Todd Lamarand from our Ottawa Bureau. And on Friday, the multi-award-winning APTN Investigates begins its 10th season with a new episode. Investigative reporter John Murray looks at how the car industry targets Indigenous buyers. But kicking it all off tomorrow is a brand new episode of Face to Face. Liberal MP Robert Falcon-Ouellette joins Dennis Ward to discuss a range of topics, including the government's push to see the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion move forward. Here's a sneak peek from that.
What I really want is actually Indigenous peoples to have ownership of it. Northern Gateway was not approved at the end of the day, didn't move forward. Indigenous peoples did have some ownership in that. Energy East is not moving forward. I think we have to recognize that there are a lot of jobs which are dependent on this, that are a lot of jobs of Indigenous peoples who depend on this, but we also have to protect the environment.
It's time for another short break, but we have more news to come, so stick around. Here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. To northern Alberta, we've got 2 and some snow in high level, 4 and sunshine in Fort McMurray, 5 in Edmonton and sunshine, but we've got some snow in 2 in Lethbridge. Tofino is the only sunshine in southern BC and 15 degrees, 5 and rain up in Quesnel. Dease Lakes 5, Smithers is 8 and sunny, Prince Rupert 13 and sunshine. To the Yukon, lots of sun. Old Crow's in at 2, Dawson is at 8, the same with Mayo, 7 in Whitehorse. Lots of sun in the Northwest Territories, 2, 1 for Norman Wells, 3 for Wrigley, 2 for Fort Simpson. Sax Harbor's in at -6 in sunshine, -2 for Polytech and Colville Lake and Tuck. -8 in Cambridge Bay with some snow. Whale Cove's in at -2 with some sunshine. Arviat, 0 and sunshine. Resolute's in at -10 but lots of sun. Igloolik, -2 and some rain or snow. And Iqaluit's rainy and 1. Welcome back. A striking painting of a tribal chief done in 1835 in Australia now has a new home in New Zealand. Who's the young man in the painting? Here are our colleagues at the Maori Television.
There'll be all sorts of tifiri, clues that we'll be looking for to help us understand who the person might be.
He's immortalised, his features examined, debated, even bidded for in the art world, but his identity is unknown. New Zealand's very own Mona Lisa.
You get a sense of him as an individual, and I think that's part of the allure of the drawing, and it's why when you look at it you want to know more about him.
Europeans would come and say, oh, I like that guy, and I like that guy, and then they do moko.
Edward Allison is a Ngāi Tahu historian. He's thrilled this painting by German-born artist Charles Rodius is returning home.
Reflects a young man, an active man. He looks noble. I think it looks a great impression of a young chief of that era.
His identity is a mystery, but there's speculation that the man in the painting is Ngāi Tahu chief Karetai.
It's the inscription on the work, so it's Chief Atai. All of the drawings of Maori by Rodius have the names phonetically written on them. One reason why people might think it is Karetai is because of the ate, Karetai, the phonetic sound.
But Allison is not convinced.
It's very preliminary, in my view. I mean, to try and unearth and fathom who this person may be actually will require quite a bit of disciplined research and across a whole range of resources. Karetai was born at Otako. At that time, or shortly after that time of the painting, he became the paramount chief at Otako. He was active active across the tribe. I think he had 8 wives, quite a few children. He signed the treaty.
The painting depicts only one side of the chief's face, which is why some believe it's Karetai.
Because we cannot see the left side of his moko, he lost an eye and he had injury there as a result of one of his battles in the Marlborough Sounds with Te Raupara's men. I believe it was a gunshot wound. And so when he drew his moko post that event, he always drew it as it was. You couldn't see part of the moko because it had been blown away, so to speak.
It was so important to get the drawing because it's incredibly rare drawing. So it was drawn in 1835, which is very early. for a work of this sort. There's nothing else like it really in another public collection in New Zealand.
Last year, the painting was purchased by Otago University's Hocken Library. It's at the Auckland Art Gallery but will return to Dunedin this month.
The connections to this area were so strong, we really wanted to bring this drawing home. Towards the end of last year is when we heard that the drawing was coming up for sale. It was owned by somebody living in Australia who had inherited it through their family.
In a bidding war, the Rhodius painting cost $158,000. Notman says it's worth every cent.
Rhodius was a convict. He was transported to Sydney for a minor misdemeanor, but was also this trained artist. So it's quite an interesting fusion of things, this situation that he found himself in. Drawings of Maori are incredibly rare among Rhodius's oeuvre. There is only a handful of sitters that he depicted of New Zealand Maori. Most of his other drawings were of Australian Aborigine kings and their wives. So towards the end of 1834 and during 1835, there were a group of Maori in Sydney, and somehow they met Rhodius and he met them, and these wonderful drawings eventuated.
The thing is, the Otago Harbour, huge shipping activity going on there. It's in the 1830s. Otago was the second busiest port in New Zealand. They've done a wee bit of research in terms of some chiefs in their travel, and the fact that some of them were in Sydney at the time that the artwork was done.
One of the main things will be perhaps investigating further in Australian archives, because Rhodius never came to New Zealand, so there are no sort of records here, or few records here relating to the artist.
It's a bit like the mokai that the papa have been retrieving from across the world. There's a lot of research has to go in to find out who these chiefs or these people may have been. It requires analysis, careful time to look at all sorts of information. We would, for example, want to try and assemble all the moko that we know of. One thing we'd need to do is gather photos of the next generation. And, you know, there's all sorts of things we have to do, and look for likenesses, perhaps. You know, I mean, I'm not wanting to go into speculation, but, you know, are there likenesses? Is there art?
The painting will join 17,000 other artworks in the Hocken Library. Artists like Colin McCann and Ralph Hotere are also in the collection.
We will work with Kaitahu to bring the drawing into the building and welcome Artai home and to provide a warm space for him.
That's a beautifully shot story from Maori TV. Well, that's all the news I have for you this Monday, October 1st. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.